Well, hello, hello, beautiful people. I just wanted to invite you to the call and thank you for being here and joining us. I'm sitting here with Debbie Lichter, and I feel so blessed that I was able to cultivate a friendship with her. And we totally resonated on a soul level almost instantly when we started talking. She totally speaks the language that I'm speaking, which is a conversation about bringing you into your truest essence of yourself, helping to connect you with cosmic consciousness and to really just deepen your level of presence and connection. And Debbie is really beautiful in the way that she works. She does work specifically with addiction, and she does also different types of fitness work as well. But she does wrap it in a really beautiful spiritual wrapping, and it's a holistic way of entering into that conversation. We're not necessarily just focusing on the little bits of the addiction, but the whole aspect of it and helping to deepen that connection. So why don't you, Debbie, tell us a little bit about your business, yourself, and what you do?
Oh, thanks, Kat. It really is just so beautiful to be here, and I just really want to commend you for being so committed to this path of really helping people align, with this cosmic consciousness and what that means, and really peeling back the layers and being very committed to that path yourself. And that's just I just really, really want to honor you for being courageous and willing to put your stake in the ground and say, I am taking a stand for this, because it's just, I feel so deeply that this is what humanity needs for our evolution.
Yeah, for sure. And I find the deeper that you go into this type of a path, the more that you feel the calling. And it's almost like it's not even your vision anymore. It's the collective vision of humanity. And I'm, playing out my beautiful role and accepting it on new levels every day. So it's a gift. It is really, I find it's a gift to myself to be able to be a part of this. So that's why I'm so passionate
Absolutely.
about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were asking a little bit about my background, and I feel like it's, it was so perfect, like just as what you were just sharing, because I found myself, I was this very like I call myself a high functioning addict. I feel like I attract high functioning addicts. And what I mean by that is it's people who they like, life isn't all that bad. They feel very committed. They want to make a big difference in the world. They have some external success going on. They have accolades and achievements that they've done in the past. And that was me, graduated, UCLA, summa cum laude. I was working for Cosmopolitan magazine internationally, creating campaigns for Estee Lauder and Tommy Hilfiger, and, doing all this glamorous stuff. Um, and then I came back to the States, and I was working in the health and fitness industry. I actually have 20 years of experience in the health and fitness industry. And at the peak of my career, I mean, I wanted to help so many people, and I was able to help people. And I was running a health club, and I looked like the picture of health on the outside. And I was the face of Pilates, mind, body, health, and fitness. And I kind of looked the part, right? And I felt like such a fraud, because I was living incongruently. And, I was totally addicted to food. I was completely body obsessed. I was restricting during the day, and I was binge eating at night. My adrenals were tapped. I was totally exhausted. I had chronic pain. I had markers for an autoimmune disease. I was so unhealthy on the inside, but I really could keep up this appearance that things weren't that bad. And what that did for me for a long time is allowed me to actually believe that things that weren't that bad.
Mm-hmm.
And it really wasn't until I got to an emotional bottom. I had to get to a bottom where it wasn't that my life externally was horrible. I mean, yeah, I was having trouble in my relationship, and yeah, I was feeling lonely, and I wasn't seeing my friends as much, and I was a workaholic, and like there were external markers, so to speak. But it really was this realization of like, this isn't working. Like something I'm doing is not working. I'm feeling this deep, deep calling, and I want to be this person in the world. And then I'm not showing up as that. And I just felt so much shame and so out of control. And so for me, I really, really had to get honest and and they say, when the teacher is ready, the student appears. And that's like,
Yeah.
that's so what happened to me. I mean, I really hit that place of realizing that I don't have this, even with all my expertise, even with all the inner work that I've done, like the decade of therapy I had done, I had a lot of work in me. I'd been to a lot of seminars. I could help a lot of other people with what I knew, and they would get results. But I couldn't help myself in the same way I was blocked. And I really, really needed someone who was going to be able to help me to see what I was missing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I committed to that path. And I mean, really, it was learning this completely new way of being, what I today now call the freedom formula, that completely just transformed my experience of myself, my connection to myself, my connection to others, my connection to God.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, really for the last nearly a decade, I've now been helping other women all over the world really get free from addiction and come into a deeper place of connection to themselves and learn how to trust themselves and feel more present, because that is the experience. That is the experience. I know we're going to talk in a few moments about, like how do we actually cultivate that? So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about it, but it is so possible to feel free and to feel light inside and to feel that peace that comes with just knowing that you are living in alignment.
Mm-hmm.
And I deeply, deeply want every man, woman, and child to feel that, but particularly I feel called to work with women entrepreneurs and coaches and healers and women who really have a calling and a message and really feel like they want to make a big difference and help others, but they're being held back because they're feeling something is a little bit off for them. So I deeply, deeply want them to know you're not alone. I totally get you. And there's absolutely a way out. Absolutely. Yeah.
For sure. I totally relate to everything you said. And one thing I do want to add, I can hardly believe that you had 20 years of experience before you had your 10 years. So like, hello, you look amazing. Just have to, because that's just, but I think, one thing I've been noticing, and this is kind of a bit of a side note, one thing I've been noticing is that people that I've met who are spiritually aligned and who feel this sense of fulfillment and deep connection and presence, you can never tell their age because they always look so much younger. And there's something that just comes out of our pores when you feel yourself in that spiritual alignment. So for people who are a little bit vain as well and want to keep their looks up, I think this is kind of a little bit of a secret for that as well. Now, I'm just kind of curious because like one of the things that I've noticed on my path and my journey is that, there's this phase where you've got this big vision, you have your idea of what you want to experience in the world. You want to help people, you want to help other people to live the best life that they can possibly live. But, there's a state where we're incongruent with that, where you're like, when you said that you felt like a fraud, and I totally relate to that as well, where I was feeling like this is the highest version of myself that I see. And, this is who I see myself to be. But then when I'm coming into daily action, I'm not necessarily living up to what that is, whether it's in my thoughts, whether it's in my words, or whether it's in my actions. And that incongruence is what causes so much static and density, and it almost side rails you from experiencing that connection, because you're almost focusing on the disconnection and trying to, bring it all together. So what is it that you find that is disruptive to this congruent state? What is it that takes us away from that level of presence?
Such a great question. Gosh, there were so many things that you just said right there that I'm like, oh, I want to speak into all this stuff. So I'm just going to center right now and ask what wants to come through with that. I feel that, yeah, it's a great question. Like, so we want to be more connected, and we want to be more present, and we want to be more congruent. And so what's going on internally that's not that, because it's like, if I want to be more that, then something's telling me that I'm not that. Right. And so when I really, what I've seen just from working with women just all over the world is like the number one thing that I see that really blocks women from having the level of connection and presence that they want, and really being the people in their lives that they want. And there's a few things that I'm going to say to that, but the first thing that it starts with is that I find that we have a really hard time getting honest with ourselves. We've got a really hard time.
Are you sure? I don't know.
And I see this, and and it's interesting because, like you mentioned, I really specialize in working with women who have addiction, because I really see addiction as the opposite of connection. It's like what do you get when you take disconnection and incongruence and fragmentation and not being present and like self-doubt and fear, like when you kind of put that all into a bag, like what do you get, and that really is addiction, and I find that well, let me just share what addiction is actually, because I think that is all a part of getting honest, is really actually even understanding what these terms mean and what they mean in our own lives and finding our truth around all of it. But what I see addiction as is nothing more than a dis-ease. It's a dis-ease, a separation from ease, a separation from connection, a separation from comfort that affects us in body, mind, and spirit. And what I find, when I talk about women needing to get honest, it's because I see us running around trying to fix ourselves without fully understanding like what our real problem is, if that makes sense. And so sometimes that looks like really focusing on our external world. Okay, well, if I can just get my business or the relationship to look this certain way, or my body to look this certain way, or, my bank account to look this certain way, or we kind of like focus in a very, very external world. If I can just get these pieces to look a certain way, because I specialize in food addiction, it's like, if I can just get my eating plan to look a certain way, if I can just get these foods in my body and this exercise in my plan in my body, and we kind of like, we go down this like rabbit hole of obsession.
It's like this checklist of things that you need to do in order to be happy.
Right. Or I notice this like spiritual bypass thing where it's like, I'm just gonna think positive. I'm just gonna be love and light. I'm just gonna like, everything's good. And I'm just gonna, and all that stuff is really commendable, but, we're kind of missing the point there too. Mm-hmm. And so what I really find is that it's important for us to really get honest with ourselves. And how do we do that? I mean, I know this isn't, it sounds like a simple concept, and yet, I take women through a whole 6-step, like in-depth process. Like, it's like a whole self-diagnostic process for them to really uncover their truth and get clarity around, do I have addiction and what's going on and where, like what is my real problem and stuff. So I have a lot of respect for this being like a larger conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that one question that each one of us can start with is, where am I going unconscious?
Yeah.
Where am I going unconscious? And like really, really being willing to see all of it. And I think that it just starts a conversation for us that kind of removes the veil a little bit, pulls back the curtain, and just allows us to actually get real. And that becomes like the foundational place that I find we each need to start from, because unless we're starting from that place, and it's not just getting honest with what I think in my mind, but it's actually fully understanding what the scope of my problem is.
Mm-hmm.
And not just focusing on the physical or just on the mental, but like actually understanding the full body, mind, and spirit scope of what's actually happening internally that's creating this condition of feeling disconnected, that's creating this condition of not being present, that's creating this condition of incongruency.
Mm-hmm.
And so that becomes like the foundation of which we're then going to be able to build our body temple, build this structure, that we can continue to come back to and ground into.
I think it's really beautiful because you've shared within that response a bit of an answer. When people segment body, mind, spirit separately, inherently you're going to have some incongruence. But when you look at it as a whole, it's like, for example, if you were to see a chiropractor, they're going to look at the entire spine and make sure that it's in alignment. You can't just look at one vertebrae at a time and say, well, that one looks aligned, but if it's not aligned with another one, then you're out of alignment. So it's just interesting how we have tended to segment our lives, our body, our mind, our spirit, and, kind of categorize the work and separate ourselves in that way, where I find the deeper that you go into a level of presence and connection, you realize that everything is unified, everything is connected. And so you do have to look at it in a holistic way for sure.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And a big thing that I see too with women, particularly ones who like have this deep calling, who are struggling with like the fraud experience, is that they struggle with a lot of self-doubt, and they struggle with, a lot of self-doubt, a lot of shame, a lot of that, like, I should be here, and a lot of lack of trust.
Yeah.
And what I find is that there's this, and this was so me. I mean, it's funny. I always laugh because I love Pilates. I think Pilates is great. And I think it's funny. I always kind of joke around about this, but Pilates was originally called Contrology. And it's funny to me now looking at, because I was such a control, like I wanted to get in control. I wanted to get in control of my body and my relationship with food and my life and like my relationships with people and my business. Like I wanted to just be in control because I thought that if I could just get in control, that I would be able to finally like get a handle on things and things would be calm, and I'd get some distance from all of the anxiety and the overwhelm and the chaos that was going on. And I would have like, okay, I can exhale now. Everything's under control. And now I can take thoughtful action, or I can take conscious action, or I can take aligned action.
Which is funny because when you control, there's almost a contraction happening. There's a tension that happens there. And it just seems like that's so out of alignment in taking a breath, because you don't take a breath when you contract.
And that's exactly it. And so it's funny because what I find when I'm speaking with women, especially around addiction stuff, is they're like, I just want to get control. I want to gain control. And it was really, really paramount for me. It was a total paradigm shifter for me to really get that it's not about gaining control, that it really is about learning to let go. And, and yet we can know that. And then we sort of, that kind of gets like put into our little, like, oh great, these are one of the like the spiritual things that I know. So I know I'm supposed to let go. And then how does that look in our lives? Then we get angry with someone and then we're like, okay, I'm supposed to just let that go. And then we kind of like, we catch a glance of ourselves, in the mirror, and we don't like the way we look for whatever reason. And we're like, no, I'm supposed to let that go. I'm supposed to love that. We kind of like use it, but we're kind of like trying to imprint this idea of letting go without truly, truly, authentically, and from an embodied place, like what's actually the alchemy of being able to trust myself and to let go and to really operate from that place that isn't forced and struggling and trying to figure it out. I mean, I'm guilty of that too. I notice myself, and it's like wanting so much to make a difference in the world, but then I can kind of get like into the, okay, I've got to figure out how I'm going to do this in my business, or I've got to figure out how I'm going to make this happen. And there's this beautiful, oh, wait a second. No, I don't. That's actually not how this whole deal works. Connection and presence doesn't work that way. Connection to myself doesn't work that way. And truly being of service doesn't actually work that way. And so, what I teach women is actually the anatomy of trust. And what does it truly mean to be able to trust ourselves at a deep, deep level so that we're operating from that place of intuitive knowing, and not just, making decisions based on kind of like how we think that's going to be received out in the world, or B, making decisions based on what we think we're supposed to do, but actually really, really authentically from a deeply grounded, intuitive place, being able to act from that gut instinct, from that core wisdom, from that intelligence that we have in our core. And so I think that's a huge, huge thing that I see for women in being able to come to a place of deeper trust, is really being able to learn their gut wisdom and their gut intelligence. There's something called the enteric nervous system, and the enteric nervous system is literally like a million neurotransmitters and neurons that are lining our gut from our esophagus to our colon, and it literally is it's our body's brain. It's our body's brain, and it is vastly intelligent. In fact, it can function independently of our brain. And there's information that's constantly going back and forth between our gut and our brain. And 90% of the information that's going between our gut and our brain is actually going from our gut to our brain. So there's an intelligence in our body, in our core, in our gut, that's actually informing our mind. And this is where 90% of our serotonin lives. So like this actually, our gut intelligence actually informs a lot of our moods and our emotions, like happiness and depression and things like that. There's a lot that's happening in our bodies. And what I find with women is that we're disconnected from our bodies. Even those of us, I know that you do yoga and I'm a Pilates expert, and even within the space of mind body, I had to get really honest that I was still disconnected from my body.
For sure.
And not listening to my body, and not listening to the subtle cues of my body. And one thing that I always share, because it's just this image that always pops in my mind. But and I see this particularly. Well, I'll just share it. But the international symbol, if you think of the international symbol for like a woman's restroom, you have like the circle and like the triangle, like the two arms like that, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but the circle isn't attached to the triangle. It's literally like a floating head above a body.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's so interesting, because how many thousands of times in our lives have we looked at that symbol? We're like, oh, I've got to use the restroom. And we look at that symbol, we identify as it, and we walk through that door. We're like endorsing that. Like, I'm going to walk through that gateway.
Yeah.
Like the unattached head from the body.
You know what? From now on, when I go to restaurants, I'm going to bring some white out with me and just draw.
I'm going to give you a neck, darn it.
I'm going to connect you, girl. Yeah.
We're going to connect you. But it's so fascinating. And I think that unconsciously we are kind of, tapped into this. And when I speak with women, whether they overtly identify as having an addiction, because addiction, let's get real. Addiction isn't just like the main, oh, I've got addiction to drugs or alcohol or food or, gambling or sex. But we can have addiction to controlling, fixing, creating chaos. We can have, tons of codependency stuff go on. We can have addiction to, who we think we are. We can have, we like addiction is kind of like, I always just kind of joke. And I know you and I have joked about this before, but I'm like, don't we all kind of get that we're addicts in one way or another? Like there's kind of ways that we're all acting out. But I find that addiction, those of us who do struggle with addiction, or that cycle kind of comes back. Maybe it's not always there, but then we always kind of like, we're like, wait, why am I bumping up against this pattern again? Why is this coming back into my life? Is that there really is that severing going on of body and mind. And I notice that people will actually say, I'm up in my head a lot. I'm anxious. I'm overwhelmed. There's a lot of stuff. I'm full of doubt. There's a lot of stuff that's kind of going on here. And so even more so why I think it's so important. And again, there's a whole system that I teach women with, being able to really cultivate their inner guidance system. There's a whole training around that. So, but I do just want to illuminate it, because I see it as just like vital. If we want to have more connection and presence, we've got to get connected to our bodies. Mm-hmm. And the pathway to that, I really find it really starts with getting into our guts. So, yeah.
Which is really beautiful. I find like, from my own personal experience, I experienced a time where I almost felt alienated by my guts. And so it's like, well, I'm going to spend all my time up here, because then I don't have to connect to the guts, which I feel alienated by. And it's interesting, because it's like these addictive behaviors, I'll find, just from personal experience, I just find that it's when I'm either coming up against a place where I'm about to discover and unveil something really beautiful, but it's hard work and it means getting really vulnerable. And then the pattern has been to just check out or tune out. That means saying, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to go watch a television show, or, oh, I'm just going to play this game on my phone, and then just totally checking out to like escape from that place of vulnerability. From that place where I'm actually just sitting and being with my body and just asking it to share with me and listening to what it has to share with me, because there is so much wisdom there. Sometimes we don't want to hear it though, or sometimes it's like when you're on that precipice of connection and presence, it's almost like there's almost like a little wall, and it feels like resistance. But really, there's no wall there. It just means you have to break through that resistance. So it's really interesting, your conversation about the guts. And I'm really excited about the idea of having a diagnostic tool to be able to go into your body and to really diagnose that. And it makes me so excited, because there's a whole new generation coming into the world. And I feel I spent so much time as a younger woman saying, I'll never have kids because I'll break them. Like I'll, and I'm like, so I'll just, I'll be like the old cat lady. It's fine. I need to have kids. But now I'm coming into this place where I'm more open to motherhood and I want to have a family. But I feel like, as a woman, I want to really respect and honor that, how I interact with my children, how I connect with my children, that is really going to be the way that I teach. Not necessarily what I tell them to do, but by looking in their eyes and showing them love and allowing them to trust me because I'm there for them. And I think that for me to be able to show up in that way for my children and also for the people that I work with, it's so important that I have that level of connection with myself.
100%, Kat, really. And like, I would say that that's like one of the number one things that I hear from the women who I work with is truly they truly want to be that woman, that fully integrated, congruent woman who then is a role model for their children. And they, the women who I work with, they want to help others, but they also want to be that, they want to just be that influence just by who they're being for their families. They really see that. And it is true. We have that potential and that power as women to really be the lighthouse in our families and to set the precedent and to transform and transmute any, kind of gunk that's been passed down through our lineage, to really have a chance to shift that and to walk forward in a different way, and then to create a new pattern for the rest of our lineage. And so it's really, it's so beautiful. And again, it's just like, this is why I love working with women. We're like, just so full of goodness of who we want to be and why we want to be that person is so, in order to be able to be of greater service just by who we're being. And I would say that the biggest thing that I see around not being able to be that is that we do have blocks. It's important to get honest. And it's important to, like you said, have that self-diagnostic tool. Like, let me really like get honest and really understand what my truth is and get some clarity around this and really understand fully what my problem is so that I can actually access the full solution. And I'm not running around trying to put out fires and fix things that I don't fully get, and then cultivating that connection to self and that deep inner trust. But what I found is that we still have this issue of incongruence when we have, we've got that deeper stuff that's blocking us, and that's weighing our hearts down. That's holding us back from speaking our truth, that we don't feel like we can fully put ourselves out there. There's something still that is, that's creating that internal congruence. And this is actually what I see. And the way that it was revealed to me was very much in this energetic way. And so I can almost only describe it like as a kind of like a visual. But if you imagine that, here we are as humans kind of standing, and then we are at all times constantly being informed by the universe, right? We've got information coming in and information flowing through and information coming out and coming back in. And it's kind of like this toroidal, right, flow that's moving through our bodies at all times. And so the universe, God, spirit, source, whatever you want to call it, truth, is wanting, it's trying to run the laws of the universe through us at all times, the law of cause and effect, and of a law of attraction, and and all of these things that we kind of know, from all of our personal development work. We all sort of know these things.
And don't forget the law of love.
And the law of love, and, and all that cool stuff. But what I find is when we have these internal blocks, we literally are obscure. There's an obstruction inside of us that actually the way that it presents to me, like the way it's been revealed to me in visions is if you imagine the 7 chakras inside of us, and literally they're displaced. It's like our mind is kind of over here, and our heart's kind of wanting something else, and we're not connected to our gut, and we're not grounded in our power, and we're not connected to our sexual essence, and or there's shame around that, and it's almost like this, like we're just disjointed. And so when we have that, there's like this internal fragmentation and internal disconnection, and we're any place other than right here, right now. You know, our mind is projecting into, well, what happens if I do this, and I should do this and that, and our heart's like, you know, still wrapped up with like the shame of, you know, something that happened, you know, in yesteryear, and we're kind of like, we're all over, we're like split all over space and time. And so there's not even enough of us to be able to be present. And so then we show up wanting to be present, and it's like we got nothing to draw from. And the universe has nothing to inform or flow, because we're actually static and stuck in and almost like fossilized in different space and time. And so what I found is that it's one thing to uncover what your blocks are, but what I see is paramount is I love the fact that I've used the word paramount like 3 times in this. It's not like a word that I normally use, but it just feels like I think it's because it's like it's that serious, you know. It's
like this is, you have to listen to this because it's really, paramount.
It's paramount. It's paramount. I love it when, you know, like we just ask Source to speak through us, and it's like, this is apparently the language that wants to come through right now. You know, it's like, this is paramount.
Well, it's funny because it also gives me the image of the mountain. So I'm like, I'm climbing the mountain. This is paramount. I gotta get there. Anyways, you were saying it's paramount.
And I actually even forgot what that was, which is really funny. But what I see happen so much is that we have this, you know, we have all of like our tools, we have like our belief, we have our spiritual beliefs, we have everything that we know, we have everything that we've learned, everything we've uncovered, everything we've gotten from all of the deep work that we've done, you know, but then we're missing access. And there's a difference between belief and access. And we need belief. We need to start with a sense of belief. Otherwise, we don't have anywhere to start. We need to have that sense of belief. But what I find is that unless we are actively engaged in the process that unblocks us, where we can get free and clear of those things that are blocking us, and we can literally get those obstacles removed from us, then we actually lack access. And so if you think about that again with the chakras, the way that looks, the way that's been revealed to me is that our lower chakras are like cut off from our higher chakras. So here we have our sixth sense, we have our, you know, divine inspiration. And so, but if we're like blocked here at our heart, and we've got some stuff that needs to be, you know, like faced, and we've got some resentment that we're blocked by, we've got some judgment that we're blocked by, we've got some, you know, we've got some ways that we've been dishonest, we've got shame, we've got stuff, you know, to just kind of say, oh, that stuff doesn't exist, it's not real, only love is real, only God is real. Well, that's true, but it's still weighing on us. And so we actually need to face that stuff. We need to move through that stuff, you know, and then what are we withholding? You know, we're kind of bottlenecked here at our throat. Our mind wants one thing, our heart wants something else. Like everything kind of gets bottlenecked here at the throat, and we're not communicating our truth. We're withholding. We are not being fully honest. We're being in judgment of ourselves and others, you know, and so all that stuff energetically happens at our throat. And so what that does is it doesn't allow us to fully access this. And so then we sit in meditation, we want to access it. And so we sit there, you know, and it's like we have to do this bypass thing to get here. And because we don't actually have the full access. And so then we can kind of get the concepts of wanting to be connected and wanting to be intuitively guided and wanting to be, you know, guided by the divine, but we're actually not able to fully access the fullness of what that connection feels like.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's funny that you say that as well, because when I guide meditations, I always find it so important to begin with a body scan. And, a lot of people neglect that, and they just sit in meditation and like, okay, I'm just going to, focus on something and go there and, expect the thoughts to disappear. But I find that one of the things that gives us that biggest level of presence in that moment is to really come into the body. And it's like you said, parts of our presence, parts of our awareness are just like fossilized in time, in the past, and like projecting themselves forward into the future. And it's one of those beautiful tools to be able to come into this present moment is through our body. And, being spiritual beings, we can often forget that. But the body is such an incredible tool to reach the divine and to be able to almost become like a funnel for divine inspiration. But we need to be with that funnel. We need to be with ourselves in our body to be able to receive that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, 100%. And what I found is that, like it's important to, I feel like we can get caught in kind of like what you just said. We can get caught in just wanting to be in the spiritual kind of awakening piece of it, or just wanting to be in the body and kind of not seeing the body as that access point. And I think because of the women who I tend to work with, who tend to be like the coaches and the healers and the yoga instructors and the Pilates instructors and the ones who are already like teaching all of this, I think that the biggest kind of contribution that I'm able to support them with in this way, because it's like we know this stuff, but then if we're not showing up in that way fully, then what do we do with that? And what I see is, and this is like something that I need to on a daily basis continually, bring into my daily practice. So it's not like I've arrived, but it's the idea of really of humility and of really setting aside what we think we know and opening ourselves up for a new experience, and so we can talk about all of this theory. Like I just went into this big theoretical explanation of incongruence and all this stuff, but even that itself becomes information that then can block us from the experience that we're here to have right now in this moment. And so it's like, it's walking that delicate balance of like understanding and then also saying, okay, yes. And now that I understand that, like, let's fully integrate that. And then let's set that aside so that I can be available and be present in this moment. Yeah. So that's just like, I was kind of trying to feel into like what wanted to be said in that moment. I'm like, there. That's one that wanted to be said. Yeah.
No, I think that came through perfectly. And, we can spend so much time intellectually experiencing something, but it's until we've grounded it into our bodies and really integrated the experience of it, rather than just intellectually thinking of the experience or theorizing about it. It just brings it into us and makes it a more holistic experience. And then the wisdom is within our bodies at that point. We carry it with us.
Beautiful.
Well, I'm really excited about what you have to teach and what you have to offer, because it's just such a breath of fresh air. It's a really beautiful way that you teach it, and just giving those diagnostic tools to be able to integrate and to diagnose everything and to really just clean up that connection and to be able to deepen the level of presence that people have on a day-to-day basis to really help just make a more deepened, profound impact on this world, which we're all craving, or at least the people who are watching this video, who are called to watch this video, are craving. So I'm just curious, where can people find you? Where can people explore this a little bit deeper?
Thank you. Yeah. I would love, if somebody feels really called, like, hey, I want to get some more clarity around, I think that maybe I have an addiction, or I have these patterns that come up, they have these distraction patterns that come up, I'm feeling incongruent, I'm feeling like a fraud, I don't really know who to talk to about it, I would just love to be, a clarity confidant, where you can come and you can talk about that stuff, because I know that the work I do isn't for everybody. Talking about addiction isn't everybody's conversation, and that's okay. And I'm also really clear that for the women who do struggle with self-doubt and shame, maybe it's the way that they're eating, maybe it's the way that they're drinking, maybe it's the way that they're acting in their relationship, maybe it's, I struggled with drug addiction, like maybe it's that too. Like, I believe that there is that it's possible to be a woman who is spiritually, like a spiritual woman who also has these patterns that are going on that, she wants to clean up. And so if that is a conversation that someone watching this is interested in pursuing and getting more clear on, just booking an addiction clarity call with me actually would probably be the easiest way to do that. And you can just go to addictionclaritycall.youcanbook.me and just, get onto my schedule and let's have a conversation, because I'm so committed to people coming into that full congruence and connection and being able to help others and be that role model and feel free and feel like you can look the world in the eye and you're not running around being like a fraud. It's like what you see is what you get, and you're able to really, really live your calling. I'm super, super committed to that.
Beautiful. And I'd like to speak into that really quickly, is that, for anybody who is feeling like that might be something you want to do, but not quite sure. One thing that I have noticed in our conversations, me and Debbie, is that when I choose to share and be vulnerable in that way, it's really beautiful how she really honors that and holds sacred space for that, and no judgment, just total acceptance and an experience of doing the work. So it's not like you have to feel like it's not a safe place, because it is a safe place. And I just wanted to honor that Debbie does that, because it's something that's so important, is that we hold space for each other in this healing process. And so for anybody who has reservations, I just want to reassure you that if you're looking to do some of this work and you feel called, Debbie is definitely the right person to talk to.
Kat, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Such an honor to be here with you, sister. Really appreciate you and appreciate this opportunity.
Yes, and me as well. This has been just beautiful, and I'm so excited to see what we're going to do together in the coming years. So this is so beautiful, and thank you for taking the time to share with everybody I know about, how to deepen that connection and clean it up and get more present. And I look forward to the next time we get to speak.
Yay! Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Mwah.